Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all I hope you are all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got another wishlisting video as we continue on, and we are getting close to wrapping up this series. Many of the factions we're going to do now are pretty new and have only just had battle tomes, but I want to do them all so we can round out the series nicely. Today though we're starting with probably one of the older factions that we've got, however the most recent brand new faction, not including the two factions that are unreleased yet, and that is the Ossiarch Bonereapers. This is just purely a wish listing video showing what I would like to see from the Ossiarch Bonereapers in the future. There's no right or wrong answers, but I would like to know what you would like to see from this faction in the future, so please leave some comments down below with that. Also, if there isn't a faction we haven't touched on yet and you want to see that faction done next, please leave that in the comments down below as well, although there are many factions we have done, so please go check out the playlist for this series. But enough rambling on and all that, let's get cracking onto this, and this is 10 things I'd like to see for Ossiarch Bonereapers. Number 1, I want to fix the balance issues within the sub-factions. Now, this is an interesting point because I'm not entirely sure that Petrifex is a bad thing. The pluses to save, you sort of take that away, and are Bonereapers that great without Petrifex? Perhaps the issue with Petrifex, and I normally say this, isn't the fact that they get +1 to save, it's that they also get these defensive buffs along with offensive buffs as well, the ability to take the Ren 2. Is probably the biggest thing for them. So I think if you take away one or the other, probably take away the offensive stuff and leave Petrifex as this elite defensive force, and you're probably going to have them be much more fun to play against. I think rather than necessarily nerfing Petrifex anything more, you want to bring the other factions up. So give them something to do and make them better at what they do. Point number 2, I'd like to see an elite foot troop. Maybe so if the Mortek Guard are the equivalent of skeleton warriors, maybe I want to see a unit the equivalent of Grave Guard, something with two-handed weapons or halberds that's the size of the foot troops, not the large monstrous infantry that Bonereapers have, but an elite foot troop unit I think would be really cool to see, and give that a little bit of variation and some different options in how to play Bonereapers. For me, a lot of these new factions, they do just require a few units to sort of flesh out their range and give them a few more options, and definitely an elite foot troop is the way to go, I think, for Bonereapers. Point number 3. The great sword or the two-handed sword that comes in the Mortek Guard unit only gives +1 to wound. It just doesn't seem like it really does anything, and is almost not worth taking just for the sake of saving some time. I would like to maybe see in future editions of this book for that weapon to maybe have some rain, be damaged to, be a weapon worthy of being a different weapon in the unit. There's a lot of armies that do things like this with Stormcast and their Grand Hammers and all that, and it just gives you like that little bit extra punch. I think it would be rather cool to have in the book. Point number 4. Now, a lot of people when this came out, and a lot of the rumours that came around when Bonereapers was coming, were that they were Tomb Kings reincarnated. That of course is somewhat true. They're skeleton constructs, which is a very Tomb King sort of theme. However, they obviously look nothing like the old Tomb Kings. But I think we can actually draw from what we know of Tomb Kings and once again be inspired somewhat by their mode of play and their unit types to add things to the Bonereapers. This of course would mean adding one thing that Tomb Kings were very well known for, and that is skeleton archers. I'd like to see some Mortek Guard with some big bows, maybe longbows. I forget the name of the bow, the big giant bow that the Japanese warriors used to have, which is really cool. I think just a shooting unit, and this would allow you to build some actual death shooting lists, which is a cool and unique sort of thing that would only be available to these Ossiarch Bonereapers. Number 5 for me. I want to see how Catacross has reacted to his defeat to Archaon. So the most important thing we need to remember is that death is not a thing that the death characters fear. While Catacross may have been defeated by Archaon, he gets the last laugh. It is very likely that Catacross is lost and is now thinking about how Archaon actually beat him and is learning for next time. Catacross will not lose the same fight again, and Archaon will have to up his game, and if Katakros loses again to Archaon, he will learn yet more about Archaon and continue on until he finally defeats him. I want to know more of this story though, and I want to really delve into how Katakros is reacting and how characters like Nagash and Archaon are actually reacting to Katakros' defeat at the hands of Archaon. Point number 6, and we go back to drawing upon the knowledge that we have and the unit inspiration from the Tomb Kings, and that is I would like to see a Bone Giant. I know we have the Gothizzar Harvester, but he's not really a Bone Giant, is he? He's sort of a support piece. I want to see a giant bone construct that wades its way through enemy lines, smashing everything in its way. I think a Bone Giant would be a great addition to the army and give them a really cool big centerpiece. Point number 7. So we continue on this trend, and there's going to be a couple more of these, so bear with me, but I would like to see a unit of Chariots. Chariots are something we haven't got a lot of in Age of Sigmar, especially new aesthetic models. I think the closest thing I can possibly think of off the top of my head, and I know I'm going to forget something when I say this, but is the Alapex, which is sort of similar to a chariot from the Idoneth Deepkin. I mean, it's got 2 guys riding it, it's got a shooting attack and some combat, it charges. It's similar to a chariot. It's not a chariot, but it is similar. I think some cool Ossiarch Bonereaper chariots would be a rather cool addition to the force and a rather cool addition to the game in general, as nothing really has anything like that that's new. Obviously there are chariots that pre-exist in the game, I know that, but the Bonereaper ones would be the first of Age of Sigmar style chariots. Point number 8. I would like to see sort of a magical nexus sort of spirit fighting sort of model. What I'm trying to explain is something very similar to a Casket of Souls. I'm not quite sure how to describe what it really is. It's a wizard with a casket that unleashes souls for damage, and maybe we could do something let's make the Soul Reaper better and give a variation of the Soul Reaper with this quote-unquote Casket of Souls. Change the name obviously to something different, but it would be a cool thing to have and see some wizards on the table that we might not otherwise see. For me, the only Bonereaper wizards I see on the table are the big guys, Archaon and Nagash. It would be cool to see some of these Soul Reapers on the table, and I think this is a cool way that maybe we can do it. Point number 9. This is one of the last things I want to see unit-wise, or this is the last thing I want to see unit-wise, and that is some monstrous character mounts. I know we have the Liege Cavalos on his giant creature. Well, I wouldn't call it giant, he's medium-sized creature, but I want to see something War Sphinx-like. Once again, drawing on those Tomb King sort of aesthetics, like a giant War Sphinx ridden by a Liege Cavalos, and have some crew of maybe the elite Mortek Guard I was mentioning earlier in the video. It would be a really cool thing to have in an army, and once again create another centerpiece for the army. You could also do, maybe non-character variations of this and have maybe even different characters on it. So it's not just a Liege Cavalos. Maybe we could have other mounted versions. So maybe you can have a Soul Reaper, or maybe even give a cool variation to a model that's a special character like Vok Mortian. Point number 10, and the last point I've got for this, is I would like to see them change some points around to encourage list variety. Ossiarch Bonereapers are really expensively pointed, and for me the issue is you can't increase Mortek Guard without decreasing something else, and I don't even think you can do that, because Mortek Guard are the baseline troop in the army. They're not an army that has monsters for battle line, and I don't really think you can go anywhere above the current points value for them. I would even maybe suggest seeing a slight points reduction, or if not a points reduction in Mortek Guard, maybe drop the Cavalos Death Riders down in points. This would make them a much more viable option, although I understand people are already taking them, but I do feel it would make them just that little bit better an option and give you a few more points to play with in the army. But that there is 10 things I'd like to see for Ossiarch Bonereapers. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, and also if there is a faction we haven't touched on yet and you would like to see it, leave that in the comments down below as well. But that's enough rambling from me. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you're all staying safe. Most of all, I hope you're all getting a chance to fight that war against the Grey. I'll see you all real soon. Ciao for now, guys. Thank you for joining me.